FIFA called it the most inclusive World Cup in history. 3 host nations, 48 teams, 104 matches, a continent-wide celebration. That was the phrase. The most inclusive World Cup in history. Gianni Infantino repeated it in 2024. He repeated it in 2025. He repeated it again at the official draw in Las Vegas in December of 2025, where the slogan was printed on the back wall of the stage for the global broadcast. The phrase was on the press kits, the phrase was on the merchandise, the phrase was carved into the language of every official FIFA briefing for almost 2 years. Now look at what inclusion actually meant. According to the BBC, 57% of U.S. visa applications in the year leading up to the tournament were refused. 57%. More than half of every fan from a non-waiver country who applied to attend the most inclusive World Cup in history was told no by the host nation. That number is not from a fan blog. That is the figure quoted by the BBC in a piece published this week, attributed to U.S. State Department data. Sit with that for a moment. The most inclusive World Cup in history rejected more than half of the people who tried to come. So how did the gap get this wide? How did the marketing claim and the operational reality end up in different universes? That is the story tonight. Because once you map the distance between what FIFA promised and what is actually happening at airports, consulates, and visa interviews from Nairobi to Tehran to Bogota, you understand why this World Cup is the most legally contested in the modern history of the sport. And the gap, once you measure it, is not a gap. It is a canyon. Start with the official position. FIFA, in its own bid documents from 2018, listed accessibility for international fans as a core pillar of the United bid. The phrase used was, and this is from the bid book itself, a tournament that brings the world together. That was the promise. 3 countries, free movement, a continental fan experience. FIFA executives told The Athletic in 2023 that the United States visa system would be, quote, expedited and welcoming for ticket holders. Expedited and welcoming. Hold that phrase. Now here is the reality on the ground. The Guardian in November of 2025 reported that the U.S. government unveiled what it called a World Cup visa system with priority appointments for ticket holders. The same article carried a State Department warning attached to that announcement. The warning, in the State Department's own words, read that expedited processing does not mean automatic entry and that, quote, your ticket is not a guarantee. Read that line again. Your ticket is not a guarantee. That sentence appears on the State Department's own communication. It was not invented by critics. It was published by the government FIFA partnered with. The most inclusive World Cup in history rolled out an official program in which the host country told ticket holders in writing that their tickets were not guarantees. The host country, in writing, told the world that a paid World Cup ticket does not guarantee you the right to attend the World Cup. Think about what that means. You can buy a ticket for, in some cases, more than $1,000 US. You can book a hotel, you can pay for flights, you can plan a trip your family has saved for since the qualifying draw, and the host government, in the same announcement designed to reassure you, will remind you that none of it is binding. Your ticket is not a guarantee. That is the gap. And it is not subtle. The numbers behind that gap are now public. The Council on Foreign Relations, in its analysis of the geopolitical tensions around the tournament, confirmed that the Trump administration's travel ban directly affects citizens of 39 countries. 4 of those countries qualified for the World Cup. Haiti and Iran face full entry bans. Ivory Coast and Senegal face partial restrictions. Reuters and DW carried parallel pieces. The headline was simple: 4 qualified nations cannot fully attend their own tournament. And here is the part of the contrast that should make any honest observer pause. The Peace Prize was announced in Las Vegas in December of 2025. The Human Rights Watch letter was published in June of 2026. In the 6 months between those 2 moments, the facts on the ground only confirmed the HRW position. Visa denials accelerated. Hotel bookings collapsed. The Scottish fan, named in coverage by the Mirror and the Guardian, was turned away at the U.S. border despite holding a valid visa and a paid ticket. The institutional position kept hardening on the FIFA side even as The evidence on the ground hardened on the Human Rights Watch side. That is not a debate. That is a divergence. Now apply the Steelman test, because the FIFA defense here is not nothing. FIFA does not write U.S. immigration law. The travel ban predates the tournament in its current form. Visa policy is a sovereign function. A reasonable defender of FIFA would argue that no governing body, no matter how powerful, can override the immigration policy of its host country. That is true, and it deserves to be acknowledged in clean language. But here is the counterfact that ends the defense. FIFA had a choice. In 2018, FIFA chose this host. In 2024 and 2025, FIFA had multiple public opportunities to demand assurances on fan access. Reuters reported, citing internal FIFA correspondence, that the organization received 145 human rights complaints linked to the tournament before opening match. 145. The complaints, according to Reuters, included worker conditions, fan access, and safeguarding concerns. FIFA opened a dozen formal investigations relating to worker rights and roughly 10 relating to safeguarding. The remaining 123 cite, according to the same reporting, in a status the organization itself describes as under review. Under review for a tournament that is already happening. That is the gap. The promise was inclusion. The data is denial. The mechanism was supposed to be expedited processing. The State Department itself said expedited does not mean entry. The host promised welcome. The visa officers, by their own statistics, refused more than half of those who asked. And here is where it gets sharper. The BBC, in the same piece, profiles named fans. A fan identified as Cass tells the BBC, quote, "This World Cup is not ours." A fan from Casablanca, reported by Yahoo Sports, lost more than $3,000 in non-refundable bookings after his visa was denied, with no specific reason given. A Scottish fan, in reporting by The Mirror and confirmed in YouTube reporting referenced by The Guardian, was denied entry at the U.S. border despite holding a valid visa and a paid ticket. Holding a valid visa, paid ticket, denied at the border. Think about what that means for the next 34 days. Every fan from a country outside the waiver program is now asking the same question. If a Scottish supporter with a valid visa can be turned back at the airport, what stops the same from happening to me? The answer from the State Department itself is nothing. Your ticket is not a guarantee. That phrase is now in the official communication of the host country, and the gap widens further. Politico and the Financial Times both reported that European fan groups, particularly from the Netherlands, Germany, Spain, and Denmark, have begun publicly questioning the value of attending. The American Hotel and Lodging Association survey, referenced in coverage by the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, found that hotel bookings in U.S. World Cup host cities are running roughly 80% below the projections sold to investors before the tournament. 80% below projection. San Francisco was the highest performing U.S. host city in the survey at 44% occupancy of projected demand. 44%. The most inclusive World Cup in history, and the host hotels cannot fill the rooms. Now add another layer. The Athletic, in its hotel pricing investigation, profiled rooms in Mexico City that surged from 157 US dollars to $3,882 in a matter of weeks. A 2,400% jump at a single property. A Hampton Inn in another host city jumped 344% to $1,759 a night. These are not luxury suites. These are mid-range chain hotels. The pricing told the world the rooms were for the wealthy. The bookings told the world the wealthy did not come. That number is the gap turned into a balance sheet, and there is a second balance sheet. ESPN reported, citing internal pricing data, that FIFA quietly reduced prices on the lowest tier of group stage tickets in the days before the opener. Not announced, not framed, discovered. The Financial Times confirmed the change. A governing body that publicly claimed unprecedented global demand had, within its own ticketing portal, admitted the opposite. You do not cut prices because demand is uncapped. You cut prices because the rooms, the seats, the sections are visibly empty. Now here is the part nobody at FIFA wants quoted back to them. In the same Las Vegas draw, where Infantino said the words, most inclusive World Cup in history, the FIFA Peace Prize was given to the sitting president of the United States. The same administration whose visa policy was, at that very moment, refusing 57% of applicants from non-waiver countries. The award was presented before the group stage was even drawn. Critics, according to Al Jazeera, called the award vulgar. Human Rights Watch, in a separate statement, called it concocted, and the word concocted from a global human rights body is not a casual word. It is the language an organization uses when it has decided the legitimacy of an institution is now part of the public record. Concocted means manufactured. Concocted means staged. Concocted means built for an audience, not earned by action. And it was used on the record in the same week as the BBC's visa investigation. So the institutional position is this. FIFA promised inclusion. FIFA presented a peace prize to a government practicing the opposite of inclusion. FIFA accepted the visa figures. FIFA kept the slogan. The slogan is still on the website tonight, the most inclusive World Cup in history. You can check. What does this gap mean for the future of the sport? It means that the language of football governance has lost its weight. When FIFA says inclusion, the world now hears the State Department warning underneath. When FIFA says welcome, the world now hears the 57%. When FIFA says most inclusive World Cup in history, the world now hears the gap. And once the language of the institution is broken, the institution itself becomes a slogan instead of a steward. Football survives FIFA. Football has always survived FIFA. The sport is older than its bureaucracy and bigger than any one tournament. But the gap between the promise and the practice has never been this measurable, this documented, this widely reported. The BBC has it. Reuters has it. The Guardian has it. The Financial Times has it. The New York Times has it. The State Department, in its own words, has it, and the players know it. The Athletic, in its pre-tournament reporting, quoted multiple unnamed federation officials describing the travel and pricing chaos as the loudest off-pitch story in any World Cup since the 1970s. Older than most current players, older than most current executives, that is the historical scale of what this tournament is now being compared to. Inclusion was the headline, denial is the data, and the next World Cup, whoever hosts it, will be measured against this gap forever. What do you think? Is FIFA's most inclusive World Cup slogan still defensible after the BBC's reporting, or is it now permanently broken language? I read everyone. Let me know your view in the comments. If you found this worth your time, a like helps more than you would think. Subscribe if you enjoy thoughtful football coverage. Football at this scale is never just a tournament. It is a moment in time.